There is a small structure in your throat about the size of your thumb. It controls your voice, protects your airway every time you swallow, and sits right in the path of everything you breathe, eat, and drink. It's called your larynx, your voice box. And most people have no idea how vulnerable it is until the day a doctor tells them something has gone wrong. Laryngeal cancer is diagnosed in over 180,000 people every year worldwide. Here's what makes it different from many other cancers. The vast majority of cases trace directly back to preventable habits. Not bad luck. Not random genetics. Habits. 6 specific mistakes that most people are making right now, some of them not even aware it's a problem. Let's go through each one. Mistake 1 is smoking. When you smoke a cigarette, the smoke doesn't just pass through your throat on the way to your lungs. It lands directly on the lining of your larynx. And it carries over 70 documented carcinogens with it. Those chemicals don't just irritate the tissue, they get inside the cells and physically rewrite the DNA. Think of it like this: your laryngeal cells are like carefully maintained buildings. Every cigarette is a small act of vandalism, a bit of wiring damaged, a wall weakened. Do that enough times, over enough years, and the building stops being reparable. That's when cancer begins. The numbers are stark. Smokers have up to 9 times the laryngeal cancer risk of non-smokers. And the more you smoke and the longer you do it, the higher that climbs. Even secondhand smoke raises risk, the NCI confirms this. Your larynx doesn't discriminate between smoke you chose to inhale and smoke someone else put in the air around you. Here's the part people get wrong: they assume that if they've been smoking for 20 years, the damage is already done. It's not. When you stop smoking, the laryngeal lining starts recovering. Within a year, risk begins dropping measurably. After 5 years, significantly lower. After 10. Approaching a non-smoker's risk in many studies. The larynx is remarkably good at repairing itself. But only if you stop attacking it. Mistake 2: alcohol, especially combined with smoking. Most people think of alcohol as a liver problem. What they don't know is that every drink you take flows directly over the lining of your larynx on the way down. Your voice box is the first soft tissue it contacts. When alcohol reaches your laryngeal cells, it gets converted to acetaldehyde. Classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as a Group 1 carcinogen. That means confirmed cancer-causing. Acetaldehyde directly damages DNA and, critically, it impairs the cell's ability to repair that damage. So errors accumulate faster than they're fixed. Alcohol alone increases laryngeal cancer risk by 2 to 5 times. But here's the number that should really stop you: when someone smokes heavily and drinks heavily, the odds ratio for laryngeal cancer reaches 177. Not 9 plus 5. 177. These two habits don't just add their risks together, they multiply each other, because alcohol acts as a solvent that dissolves the protective barrier of the laryngeal lining, allowing tobacco's carcinogens to penetrate deeper into the cells. 2 habits. 1 biological catastrophe. Mistake 3: ignoring acid reflux. This one surprises people. It surprised researchers too, until the data kept showing the same thing: people with gastroesophageal reflux disease have more than double the risk of developing laryngeal cancer. More than double, from heartburn. Here's what's happening. When acid reflux reaches your throat, and it reaches it regularly in millions of people who don't even know it's happening, it lands on a tissue that has almost no protection against acid. Your stomach lining has a thick mucus layer designed for this. Your larynx has nothing like it. So every reflux event is another acid splash on an unprotected surface, causing microdamage that the cells then try to repair. Repeat that thousands of times over years, and the repair process starts making mistakes. The particularly sneaky version is called laryngopharyngeal reflux, or LPR. It comes with no heartburn. No burning in the chest. Just a quiet, persistent drip of acid onto the back of your throat, often while you sleep. The symptoms people notice are things like a chronic need to clear their throat, a feeling of something stuck in the throat, or a slightly raspy voice. For years, people attribute it to a sensitive throat or allergies. Meanwhile, the acid keeps arriving. If you have any of these symptoms, and especially if you have known reflux that you're managing with occasional antacids, see a doctor about proper treatment. The risk reduction from treating reflux properly is significant. Mistake 4: leaving HPV unaddressed. HPV is the most common sexually transmitted infection on the planet. Most people connect it with cervical cancer. But specific strains, particularly HPV-16, can infect the larynx and trigger the same chain of cellular events in throat tissue that they trigger in cervical tissue. HPV-related laryngeal cancers are a distinct category separate from the tobacco-driven majority. They're particularly relevant for younger, non-smoking individuals. And here's what makes them so difficult to prevent through behavior alone: most people who carry HPV have no symptoms whatsoever. It clears on its own in most cases. But in some people, it persists in throat tissue for years, quietly altering cells. The good news is that the HPV vaccine exists precisely for this. Gardasil 9 protects against the high-risk strains including HPV-16. Vaccination before exposure essentially removes this entire pathway to laryngeal cancer. If you have children, this vaccine isn't just about cervical cancer. It protects their future throat health too. And if you're an adult who wasn't vaccinated, check with your doctor. Vaccination may still be beneficial up to age 45. Mistake 5: occupational toxin exposure without protection. You don't have to smoke to deliver carcinogens directly to your larynx. If your job involves certain industrial substances, you might be breathing compounds onto your vocal cords every working day without realizing it. The documented occupational carcinogens for laryngeal cancer include asbestos, strong inorganic acids like sulfuric acid, cement dust, free crystalline silica from mining and quarrying, wood dust, coal dust, paint fumes, and diesel exhaust. These are not exotic substances in unusual environments. They're present in construction, manufacturing, carpentry, mining, and transport. The risk is cumulative and time-dependent. A week of exposure is nothing. 20 years of daily exposure is a different story entirely. And if someone in that environment also smokes, the two exposures interact the same way smoking and drinking do. The combined risk climbs dramatically beyond either alone. If your workplace involves any of these substances, respiratory protection is not optional. It's the difference between manageable exposure and decades of silent damage. And if you're a worker who smokes, quitting is the most powerful single step you can take for your laryngeal health, even above the occupational hazard. Mistake 6: a diet that leaves your throat defenseless. Your laryngeal cells are constantly repairing small amounts of damage from the environment. To do that effectively, they need raw materials, vitamins, antioxidants, minerals. When your diet doesn't provide them, those repair crews show up without tools. Small damage doesn't get fixed. Over time, it accumulates. Research confirms this in both directions. High consumption of salted and processed meats is consistently associated with elevated laryngeal cancer risk. These foods contain nitrosamines, compounds formed during the curing process that are directly carcinogenic to the mucosal tissue they contact. On the protective side, multiple studies confirm that fruits, raw leafy vegetables, and legumes reduce laryngeal cancer risk. These foods deliver antioxidants that neutralize the free radicals generated by carcinogens and inflammation, essentially intercepting damage before it reaches the DNA. Think of them as your larynx's personal security team, constantly on patrol. The practical change is simple: more vegetables and fruit every day, less processed and salted meat. You don't need a special diet. You need the basic anti-inflammatory nutrition that your cells use to defend themselves. Now let's pull this together. 6 mistakes. 6 choices that are largely in your hands. Smoking is the biggest single driver. Reducing it removes most of your lifetime laryngeal cancer risk immediately. Alcohol, especially combined with smoking, is the most dangerous combination known for this cancer. Reflux doubles your risk and is often hiding in plain sight. HPV is an emerging risk factor with a vaccine that removes it entirely. Occupational exposure is cumulative and requires consistent protection. and diet either arms your cells or leaves them defenseless. Your larynx has been working for you every single day, every word, every breath, every meal. The least it deserves is that you know what threatens it. Because unlike many cancers, this one follows habits. And habits can still be changed. See you in the next video.
Yeah, we did it! Thanks for subscribing!
That's a brief look at Health Explained. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.